The night was quiet, but not peaceful. The human explorer, Daniel, walked carefully through the alien jungle. The sky above was filled with two moons, one glowing red and the other pale white. Strange shadows moved between the trees and distant. Cries of unknown creatures echoed like whispers. He tightened his grip on the small survival light in his hand. Every step felt heavier. Daniel had been stranded on this planet for only 3 days, but it already felt like a lifetime. His ship was gone, burned in a crash he barely survived. His supplies were low, and his only hope was to find some sign of intelligent life. He had heard rumors in old space charts that tribes of alien humanoids lived deep inside this forest. Tonight, he walked toward their territory. Suddenly, he heard rustling. Daniel froze. His heart raced as he pointed the light forward. From the darkness, a small figure stepped out. She was alien, yes, but her shape was close to human. Her skin glowed faintly silver under the moonlight, her eyes wide and filled with something between fear and hope. She looked young, fragile even, but her presence carried weight. Daniel took a step back. "Who are you?" he asked quietly, his voice unsure. The alien girl did not answer with words he understood. Instead, she walked closer and held something. In her hands, a round object, glowing faintly blue, pulsing as if alive. She whispered in her own language, but then, in broken human speech, she said 4 words that froze Daniel's blood. "Hold this egg until it hatches." Daniel blinked, confused. "What? Egg? Why me?" Before he could react, she pushed the glowing egg into his hands. It was warm to warm, like it carried a heartbeat inside. Daniel felt an electric jolt run through his skin. The moment he touched it, the egg pulsed, responding to his heartbeat, syncing with him. The girl's eyes softened, but also carried sadness. She whispered again, "Now you. Father what?" "Wait, no, I can't," Daniel stammered, but she had already stepped back. Her gaze lingered for one long second, almost pleading, almost relieved. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows of the jungle, her silver form fading like smoke. Daniel stood alone, the egg glowing in his trembling hands. The forest felt even darker now. He looked around, hoping she would return, but only the alien cries of unseen animals answered him. "What the hell just happened?" he muttered. Tried to place the egg on the ground, but the moment he let go, it began to dim, its glow fading dangerously as if dying. Panic struck him without knowing why. He grabbed it again, and instantly, the light returned, brighter than before. Daniel's throat went dry. "It needs me," he whispered. But why him? He was just a lost human, not some chosen hero. Why would an alien stranger hand him something so important? What did father even mean in their culture? He walked for hours, the egg pressed against his chest. Every time he tried to put it down, it reacted as if it would die without his touch. It wasn't just warm anymore, it was alive, moving gently inside the shell. He could feel faint vibrations like the heartbeat of a small creature waiting to be born. Daniel found a small cave and decided to rest. The alien jungle outside howled with strange predators, but the egg seemed to give off a soft shield of light that kept danger away. Still, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, visions filled his mind, visions of ancient alien rituals, glowing halls, and a council of alien elders chanting around a child that looked both human and alien. He woke with a gasp. Clutching the egg tightly, morning came. But instead of relief, more unease followed. When Daniel stepped out of the cave, he found 3 alien villagers standing silently outside. Their skin was also silver, but their eyes were sharper, filled with suspicion. They pointed at the egg, whispering among themselves. One of them spoke in a deep voice, mixing their language with a few human words. "You. Chosen." Daniel shook his head. "I don't want this. Just need help. Food. Shelter. I'm not." But the villagers refused to listen. They bowed slightly and backed away, leaving him alone again. Their reaction only deepened the mystery. Why did they treat him like he carried something holy? By nightfall, Daniel's mind was racing. He wanted to throw the egg away, to be free of this strange burden. But each time he even thought about it, he looked at its faint heartbeat like glow and couldn't do it. Something inside him whispered that if he abandoned it, something terrible would happen, not only to the egg, but maybe to him too. Later, as the moons rose again, the alien girl returned. Daniel jumped to his feet, relief and anger mixing in his chest. "You, take this back." "I'm not." But she shook her head gently. Her eyes glistened as if she had been crying. She touched the egg with one hand, and it pulsed brighter, but she didn't take it away. Instead, she whispered one more sentence in broken human words. "You hold, till life comes, then law will bind you." Daniel's heart pounded. Law? What law? But before he could get an answer, she slipped back into the forest again. Leaving him more confused and terrified than before, he looked down at the egg, glowing warmly in his hands. Its pulsing heartbeat seemed stronger now, almost matching his own. He realized with a sinking feeling that whatever this was, there was no turning back. For the first time since crashing on this planet, Daniel felt truly trapped, not by predators, not by hunger, but by an alien tradition he didn't understand. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, unseen eyes watched him, whispering in a language he couldn't understand. The story of how a lost human became a father by alien law had just begun. The egg almost slipped. Daniel had climbed a wet root to cross a narrow stream when his boot lost grip. He caught himself with one hand and clutched the glowing shell with the other. For one sharp second, the light inside the egg went thin and weak, like a candle in wind. Daniel pressed it to his chest. "I've got you," he said, breathless. The glow steadied. His own heart slowed to match the steady beat he felt through the shell. He stood there, soaked from the knees down, and understood a simple, heavy truth. If he dropped this thing, something inside would die. The thought hit him harder than fear. It felt personal now. Not duty, not a task, a promise. He made a sling that morning, cut vines, dried them over a small fire, and twisted them into a simple harness. He lined a pocket with soft bark and moss so the egg could rest close to his ribs, warm and safe. When he tightened the knot and tested the fit, the egg gave a faint, happy pulse, like a tiny hand squeezing his finger. "Okay, little one," he whispered. "We travel together." The jungle paid attention. He felt it. Leaves turned to watch. Branches hung low and dripped cool water as if tasting his scent. Far above, thin creatures hopped from vine to vine, their eyes reflecting the blue glow. He walked anyway. He had to find food, shelter, and answers, especially answers. By midday, he reached a ridge where the two moons were visible together, pale in the bright sky. He rested on a flat rock and drank from his filter straw. He touched the egg with his free hand. It was warmer than the air, and it hummed just a little when his fingers traced the faint spirals carved into the shell. He had not noticed those spirals before. They looked natural but also intentional, like old writing worn by time. He tried sounds with it, simple ones. "Daniel," he said, tapping his chest. "Daniel?" The egg pulsed once. He asked, tapping the shell. He felt silly, but it mattered to him to try. Now. The egg thumped twice in a row, then once more, as if giving a pattern. He smiled. "2 and 1, he said softly. "Is that your name, or just your heartbeat?" The egg warmed again. He took it as a yes to something. Food came from the jungle in small gifts. A bush with purple pods tasted like nuts. A broadleaf plant held dew sweet as sugar. Once, when he reached for a thorn fruit he did not trust, the egg cooled in a way that felt like a frown. He drew back, laughed at himself, then stopped laughing. He listened to it. He ate the safer leaves instead. The egg warmed again. Toward evening, mist rolled in like a slow wave. Shapes moved inside it. Daniel built a small fire in a rocky nook and kept smoke low. He spoke to the egg because the silence pressed too hard on his head if he did not. Told it simple things. Where he was born, how he learned to fix engines, the taste of coffee on cold ship mornings, the way he used to fold paper planes as a boy. He did not know if it understood any words, but he knew a baby inside a shell would. Feel voice, rhythm, calm. The egg's glow softened, steady and strong while he spoke. When he stopped, it nudged his ribs with a small vibration like a request. "All right," he said. "One more story." In the middle of the second story, a twig snapped near the fire. Daniel reached for his sharpened stick. Two low shapes prowled at the edge of light, all shoulder and teeth. Their eyes were flat coins, cold and curious. The egg tensed against his ribs. He could feel it. Without thinking, Daniel placed his palm over the shell. "It's okay," he said, voice low. The egg answered. A thin, clear tone leaked from the shell, no louder than a whisper, but it slid through the trees like silver smoke. The two shapes flinched, ears pinning flat. The tone changed now, a weave of two notes, up, then down, gentle, but firm. The shapes backed away, tails low. One hissed, but neither came closer. They faded into the mist, and the tone faded too. Daniel exhaled. His hands shook. He laughed once, short and disbelieving. "You can sing," he said to the egg, "and you told them to leave." The egg gave 3 small taps against his ribs. Tap, tap, tap like a proud child saying, "I did it." Sleep came in pieces that night. Each time Daniel drifted off, he saw the same place in his dreams. A circle of smooth stones, a crowd of silver-skinned figures, a child lifted into blue light. He woke with a dull ache in his chest that was not fear and not hunger. It was something like longing. The egg hummed as if it had been dreaming. 2. At dawn, he found gifts outside the nook. Someone had left a leaf plate of soft white cakes and a skin of sweet water tied shut with a woven knot. No footprints, no faces, just the gifts and a feeling polite distance. The watchers were real then. He bowed toward the trees in thanks, because it felt right. He ate slowly and saved half the cakes for later. By midday, he reached a clearing where thin poles stood in a pattern he could not read. Each pole wore ribbons and small bones that clicked in the wind. It felt like a border. The egg pulsed twice and went very still, as if holding its breath. Daniel stood still with it. His skin prickled. A voice spoke from the shade. "Do not cross alone." He turned. A young alien stood beside a trunk, no weapon in his hands, only a walking stick. His skin was silver like the girl's, but his face carried the steady look of someone who had been told hard truths early. Daniel raised a hand, open palm. "I don't want trouble," he said. "I want to return this, or at least understand why." "Not return," the youth said, shaking his head. His human words came better than the girl's. "Bond chooses." "We do not break bond." Daniel felt heat rise in his cheeks. "I did not choose. She put it in my hands and ran." The youth's eyes softened. "An egg chose you faster than. You chose egg. Same end." He tilted his head toward the poles. It's inside his village, Law's eyes. "If you enter with bond, they must see you." He paused, but not yet. "They are afraid." "Afraid of me?" Daniel asked. "Afraid of losing?" "What the shell holds," the youth said simply. He nodded at Daniel's chest. "Afraid of losing you too." They stood in the quiet for a moment. Wind moved through the ribbons on the poles. The youth took a step closer and lowered his voice. "Keep the egg warm. Keep your voice kind. Do not cross running water for long. The little heart tires. Rest. Often, when it trembles, press it to your skin. Your beat will teach its beat." Daniel listened with everything he had. "What is your name?" "Taryn," the youth said. "I watched you last night. You sang without fear." "I talked," Daniel said, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "It sang." Irene smiled back. "Quick and shy." "Yes, it likes you." When Taryn left, Daniel stood a long time at the border poles. Part of him wanted to cross and demand answers. A louder part knew Taryn was right. Not yet. He turned away and followed the ridge, keeping the village at the edge of his map. He would come when the time felt retore when they called. Days found a shape. Walk at dawn while air was cool. Rest at stream crossings. Eat little and often. Keep smoke low. Talk to the egg. Listen when it warned. At night, he learned the difference between the egg's moods. Deep, even warmth meant calm. A quick flutter meant excitement. Slow, thin light meant it was tired, and he needed to hug it close and breathe steady until it matched him again. Once, when a storm blew, cold rain like needles, he packed the sling with extra moss and held the shell under his jacket. Hours later, when the storm passed, the egg gave a bright, cheerful pulse tap, tap, tap. Tap says, if applauding him for getting them through, he started telling it plans instead of stories. We'll reach the high rocks tomorrow, he would. Say we'll look for a dry cave. I'll make a better sling. We'll practice the song again if anything comes close. The egg stayed warm and brave when he did that. Seemed to like knowing the next step. He liked it too. Plans made the fear smaller. On the fourth day, he risked the crash site. He needed tools and maybe a beacon. The egg cooled when the scorched smell reached them, as if remembering fire it had never seen. We'll be quick, he promised. He moved through melted frames and char, found his emergency pack under a half-buried panel, and pulled out a thermal blanket, fresh filters, and a flare. He was leaving when the ground vibrated under his boots. 3 razorback lizards slid from the broken hole, scales like rusted metal. They lifted their heads and tasted the air. The lead one hissed, and the others joined. "Hot!" Daniel's mouth went dry. He backed toward open ground, put the pack behind his shoulders, and set his feet. "Stay with me," he whispered to the egg. The lizards came low and fast. Daniel snapped the flare and held it high. White fire sprayed and spat. The nearest lizard flinched, but kept coming. Daniel swung the burning stick in a long figure 8 and shouted loud and human and angry. The egg answered with that thin, bright tone again, higher now, clearer. The tone braided with the flare's hiss and turned the air into a wall. The lizard stopped. The lead one shook its head, confused, and made a choking sound. All 3 turned and skittered back into the wreck, tails whipping. Daniel held the flare until his arm ached. When silence returned, he laughed with relief and shaky pride. "That's us," he told the egg, breathing hard. 2 hearts, 1 noise. That night they camped on the high rocks. Stars crowded the sky like a city. The egg's glow mixed with the starlight and painted his hands blue. He felt the little heart beating sure and strong. For a long time, he said nothing. He did not need to fill the air. He just breathed, and the egg breathed with him. He thought of the girl with the silver skin. He thought of Taryn and the border, poles and the gifts left at dawn. He thought of the village he had not yet seen, and the law he did not yet know. He also thought of mornings on Earth, of paper planes, of the way his father had held his hand crossing busy streets. The memory surprised him. It brought a smile and a sting behind his eyes. "I didn't choose you," he said at last, voice quiet. "But I am choosing you now." The egg warmed, until it felt like a small sun, just before sleep took him. Drums began far away slow, even strikes that rolled over the hills and into his bones. The egg listened. Daniel listened too. The drums spoke a message even a stranger could understand. "Come." The watchers were done watching. He tightened the sling, rose, and looked toward the sound. The night had changed shape. His life had, too. The bond was no longer a question. It was a path, and the path was calling him to the circle of stones. The drums did not stop. All through the night, their slow rhythm carried across the hills, boom, 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 a sound too measured to be war, too heavy to be simple music. Daniel sat awake, the egg cradled close, listening. Each strike seemed to pull at his chest like a rope tied around his heart. The egg felt it too. It pulsed faster, matching the rhythm as if the sound was calling it home. By dawn, the drums grew louder. Smoke rose in the distance, thin and white. Against the pale sky, Daniel wiped the sweat from his brow. He knew what it meant. The watchers were not just watching anymore, they were summoning him. He hesitated. His instincts screamed to avoid them, to stay hidden and survive alone. But the egg tugged at him, not with force, but with trust. Its glow brightened each time he looked toward the smoke. He sighed. "All right, little one," he muttered. "If you want answers, then we'll get them. But if this goes wrong, don't blame me." The path was not marked, yet he knew where to walk. His boots sank into soft moss as he followed the sound. Birds with crystal wings burst from the trees, screeching in alarm, but no predators came near. It felt as if the forest itself was opening a road. Finally, he reached the border poles he had seen days before. The ribbons and bones clattered in the wind, and the ground beyond was clear trampled earth, smoke trails, and huts shaped from living trees. Silver-skinned aliens stood waiting. Dozens of eyes turned to him as he stepped forward. Daniel kept his shoulders straight, though his stomach twisted. The egg pressed warm against his ribs. As if urging him not to falter, the villagers parted, revealing a wide circle in the center of the settlement. At its heart stood a platform of stone, polished smooth with age. Around it, elders sat cross-legged, their faces marked with glowing paint. The girl who had first given him the egg stood behind them, her gaze fixed on him, not hostile, not kind. Just heavy with meaning. Daniel stopped at the circle's edge. One of the elders, taller than the rest, rose slowly. His silver skin shimmered in the morning light, and his voice, though deep, carried the same strange, broken human words Daniel had heard before. "Step forward, bearer." Daniel swallowed hard. He did not move at first. "I didn't ask for this," he said carefully. "I just want to survive. I don't understand what you think I am." The elder pointed at the egg. "You carry life. Life chose you. Our law is older than stone. You cannot run." The words chilled him. "Law? What law?" The elder's eyes narrowed. He lifted his hand, and the drums fell silent. Then he spoke. Slowly, each word like a hammer. "Who holds the sacred shell until it hatches, is parent by bond. No escape, no denial, no return." The crowd murmured in agreement, their voices rising like a wave. Daniel shook his head violently. "That's insane. I'm not even one of you. I don't know your ways. I don't belong here." But the alien girl stepped forward then, her voice trembling but clear. "The shell knows heart, not skin, not blood. It chooses spirit, chose you." Daniel stared at her, speechless. He looked down at the egg, glowing calmly in his arms. It pulsed once, steady and sure, as if confirming her words. "No," he whispered, shaking his head again. "I never agreed. I can't raise whatever is inside this. Not ready. I'm not the elder." Cut him off sharply. "Not ready. No parent is ready. Yet the bond is true. You cannot place the shell away. It will fade. You cannot give it to another. It will reject them. If you let it die, your life is forfeit. The law binds egg and bearer forever." Daniel's stomach turned cold. "Forfeit? You mean you'd kill me if it dies?" The elder did not blink. If life inside fails, law demands bearer pays. The crowd chanted softly, a sound like mourning. Mixed with respect, Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to run, to scream, to throw the cursed thing away. But when he loosened his grip slightly, the egg dimmed in fear. His heart ached. Against his will, he held it closer again, like a father shielding a child from rain. The elder's tone softened, just barely. "Do not fear. Human, the shell does not choose without reason. It sees strength. It sees promise. In you? Daniel laughed bitterly. Promise? I'm a stranded wreck survivor, not a hero. I can barely feed myself, let alone raise some alien child. The elder tilted his head. Yet you kept it alive. Yet you warmed it. You spoke to it, sang to it, and fought beasts for it. Already you are father. The words struck deeper than he wanted to admit. Daniel's chest tightened. Memories of his own childhood flashed, his father's rough hands guiding him, his mother's laugh when he stumbled. He had buried those memories years ago, but the egg had dug them up again. The girl stepped closer now, her silver eyes soft. Do not run, human. Law is not prison, it is gift. Egg is not burden, it is child. Daniel's lips trembled, but he forced himself still. What if I refuse? The elder's face hardened once more. Then both die. Bond breaks. World remembers your betrayal, but you will not refuse. Because the shell already knows your answer. Daniel looked down. The egg pulsed gently, like a heartbeat against his palm. Warmth spread through his chest despite his fear. It was not a chain. It was a life small, fragile, trusting him without question. His voice broke when he finally whispered, "Why me?" No one answered. The silence of the council said enough. It did not matter why. The bond was already written. The elder raised both hands. Ah! The villagers began to chant again, louder, filling the air with rhythm. The girl stepped back, bowing her head. The drums returned, echoing like thunder across the hills. Daniel stood there, clutching the egg tight, surrounded by a people who saw him not as a lost wanderer, but as something far greater, far more trapped. He realized with a sinking heart that his life was no longer his own. By alien law, he was already a father, and soon the shell in his arms would hatch to make that truth undeniable. The nights grew shorter. The egg grew warmer. Daniel could feel it now, not just the faint hum or heartbeat, but real movement. Tiny shifts, soft thumps against the inside of the shell. Sometimes when he held it close, he felt little kicks, like fists or feet pressing to be free. Each time, his chest tightened. The truth was no longer a distant threat. The shell was going to break. Soon, the village treated him differently after the council's judgment. Wherever he walked, eyes followed him, some full of respect, others with suspicion, and a few with envy that burned like fire. Children pointed and whispered the word bond-bearer. Old women touched their foreheads when he passed, as if warding off fate. Daniel hated it. He wasn't their hero, their savior, or their chosen one. He was just a man who had held out his hands at the wrong time. Yet every night, when the egg pulsed against his chest, he spoke softly to it. He told it about rivers on Earth, about stars that humans named, about how babies back home were born, crying but loved instantly. The egg always glowed steady when he spoke. Sometimes he even imagined it understood. One dawn, as pale light touched the huts, the alien girl came to him again. She had no name he could pronounce, but in his mind, he called her the Giver. She knelt before him silently and placed a bowl of crushed herbs at his side. "Shell will break," she said in her careful, broken human tongue. "Soon, maybe today. Maybe tomorrow?" Daniel's stomach dropped. So soon. She nodded. "When moons join, the child comes." She pointed at the sky, where the two moons crept closer each night. Law says, father must hold, not leave, not fear. Daniel wanted to shout at her. Not fear? How could he not fear? He didn't know what would come out of that egg. Would it look human, alien, or something monstrous? Would it even see him as a parent or as prey? But her eyes were calm, too calm, as if she had already accepted what he still struggled against. "You will not fail," she said simply, then walked away before he could argue. That day, everything felt heavier. The villagers watched him more closely. Warriors sharpened their spears, though he wasn't sure if they prepared to defend him or test him. Even the jungle outside the border seemed restless, birds circling lower, beasts prowling near the edges. The air itself seemed to wait. By evening, the egg burned hot against his chest. Sweat dripped down his back, and his heart pounded in rhythm with it. He staggered into his hut, falling to his knees on the woven mats. The shell trembled violently, light spilling from its cracks. A thin sound escaped at a soft, high-pitched cry, muffled but alive. Daniel's breath caught, starting. The first crack came like a gunshot. The thin line split across the glowing surface. The egg shuddered in his hands, and light burst through the break. Daniel nearly dropped it, but the thought of losing it drove him to clutch tighter. His whole body shook as the creature inside pushed again, another crack spreading, pieces of shell flaking away. The villagers crowded outside the hut, chanting low and steady. The sound, mixed with the egg's trembling cries. Daniel felt trapped between terror and awe. He whispered, "It's okay. I've got you. Push. Come on, little one." The shell broke wider, a small hand silver like moonlight poking through. Tiny fingers curled around his thumb, gripping with surprising strength. He held his breath as more shells shattered, the glow almost blinding. Then, with one final push, the egg split open completely. A newborn lay in his palms, small, fragile, slick with glowing fluid. Its skin shimmered silver with faint blue patterns that shifted like rivers under the surface. Its eyes, though barely able to open, glowed faintly gold.
Ah!
And its voice, its first sound, was a thin wail that pierced Daniel's chest deeper than any spear. The child clung to him instantly. Its tiny hands grasped his shirt, his trembling body pressing to his chest as if searching for the heartbeat it already knew. Daniel's vision blurred with tears. He had sworn to reject this, to run from it, yet in that moment, every wall inside him collapsed. He wrapped the child close, whispering shakily, "You're here. You made it." The villagers outside roared with approval, the chant turning to celebration. The elder's voice boomed through the crowd. "By law, the child has chosen. The human is father." The alien girl entered the hut quietly, her eyes shining. She looked at Daniel, then at the newborn, and bowed her head. "Incomplete," she said softly. Daniel looked down at the tiny life in his arms. The fear was still there, fear of what this meant. Fear of what challenges would come, but it no longer outweighed the warmth in his chest. The child's heartbeat matched his own, strong and sure, but not everyone celebrated. At the back of the crowd stood a tall warrior, his skin marked with red paint. His eyes burned with fury as he watched Daniel cradle the newborn. He did not join the chants. He did not bow. Instead, he turned and walked away, fists clenched tight around the shaft of his spear. Daniel didn't notice him. He was too lost in the soft, trembling breaths of the child. For the first time, he felt less like a stranger on a hostile world, and more like a father, though he never asked to be one. As the moons rose together that night, lighting the sky, in silver and red, Daniel knew nothing would ever be the same again. The shell had broken. The law had sealed, and fatherhood had begun. The celebration did not last long. At first, the village was filled with chants, drums, and firelight. Children danced around the circle, and elders raised their hands to bless the newborn. Daniel sat in the center, the small silver-skinned child. Pressed against his chest, its breathing soft, its tiny fingers wrapped tightly around his thumb. For a moment, he felt something close to peace. But peace was fragile. From the edge of the crowd, the tall warrior stepped forward. His red-painted skin glistened under the fire, and his spear tip caught the light. His name was Korvac, and the way the villagers shifted uneasily at his presence told Daniel everything he needed to know. This was not a man to ignore. Korvac's voice was sharp, like metal striking stone. "This child is of my bloodline. It is the right of warriors to raise the hatchling, not an outsider." The crowd fell silent. Daniel's pulse spiked. 8. He tightened his hold on the newborn without thinking. The infant stirred, letting out a small cry, and Daniel rocked it gently, whispering to calm it. The elders stood, frowning. Law has spoken. The bearer who keeps the egg until it hatches is father. That bond cannot be broken. Korvac's eyes burned. Law bends to strength. If the human survives me, then perhaps he is worthy. But if he falls, the The child is Mina's, it should be. Murmurs spread quickly through the crowd. Some nodded. At Korvac's words, others shook their heads. Daniel rose slowly to his feet, his throat dry. Wait, you want me to fight you? What? I'm not one of your warriors. I don't want this fight, Korvac sneered. Carry the shell, outsider. You claim the title of father. But fatherhood is not only holding, it is protecting. Show us you can protect. The elder hesitated, then gave a slow, reluctant nod. The challenge is old law. It cannot be denied. Daniel's heart sank. He looked down at the tiny child, its gold-flecked eyes staring up at him with innocent trust. He could not abandon it. He could not let Korvac take it away. Whether he wanted this bond or not, it was his now. He handed the baby carefully to the alien girl, the giver who cradled it gently with both hands. Don't let anything happen to them, Daniel whispered. She nodded, her eyes fierce despite her fragile frame. The villagers formed a wide circle in the dust. Torches lit the ground and the drums began again, faster this time, pounding like a heartbeat. Daniel stepped into the circle, empty-handed. Across from him, Korvac raised his spear and grinned like a predator. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had no weapons, no armor, no training in their combat. But he had one advantage: he was human. And humans did not always fight with strength. They fought with grit. The fight began with a roar. Korvac lunged forward, his spear slicing through the air. Daniel barely dodged, the tip grazing his arm. Pain flared, but he forced himself to keep moving. He could not let fear freeze him. The villagers shouted with each strike. Dust rose beneath their feet. Daniel stumbled, rolled, and came up with a fistful of dirt. When Korvac lunged again, Daniel flung it into his eyes. The warrior roared in rage, blinded for a moment. Daniel did not waste it. He charged, slamming his shoulder into Korvac's chest. The bigger man staggered, but did not fall. His strength was immense. His muscles coiled like iron. He swung his spear wide, knocking Daniel back hard onto the ground. The crowd gasped. Blood dripped from Daniel's lip. His vision blurred. For a moment, he wanted to give up. He had no chance. But then a sound cut through the noise, the newborn's cry. High, sharp, desperate. Daniel's heart lit with fire. That child was his now, his to protect. He could not die here. He forced himself up, staggering to his feet, stepping forward to finish it, but Daniel saw his chance. The warrior's stance was wide, his balance heavy. Too heavy as Korvac thrust his spear. Daniel ducked low, grabbed the shaft, and pulled with every ounce of his strength. He used the warrior's own momentum, twisting and wrenching. Korvac's weight betrayed him. He toppled forward, slamming, face first into the dust. The spear clattered away. Daniel leaped onto Korvac's back, locking his arm around the warrior's throat. Korvac thrashed, choking, trying to throw him off, but Daniel held on with the desperate strength of a man who had everything to lose. Seconds stretched into eternity. The drums stopped. Silence fell, except for Korvac's strangled gasps. Finally, the warrior's body sagged, his fight broken. Daniel shoved him aside and staggered to his feet, chest heaving. The elder stepped forward, raising his hand. Is done. The human has proven himself. By strength, by will, by law, his father. The crowd erupted with cheers and chants. The alien girl rushed to Daniel, placing the newborn back into his arms. The child's cries stopped the moment it felt his heartbeat again. Its tiny fingers curled into his shirt and its glow steadied. Daniel looked down at it, exhausted, bleeding. But victorious, he whispered. I told you I'd protect you. But in the shadows, Korvac's eyes opened, burning with rage even in defeat. He might have lost today, but his ambition was not gone, and Daniel knew this struggle was only beginning. The child grew faster than Daniel expected. At first, it was only tiny things. Its golden eyes stayed open longer each day. Its hands, once trembling and weak, now clutched at his finger with surprising strength. Within only a few nights, the infant could already lift its head and turn toward his voice. The villagers whispered constantly. Some bowed when the child passed, others hid their faces in fear. Daniel noticed something else too. Strange sparks. Whenever the baby cried, light shimmered faintly around its skin, like dust made of stars. Once, when he tripped and nearly dropped it, the glow flared bright, and both of them floated for a heartbeat before landing softly on the ground. Daniel froze. The child just giggled. That night he sat alone by the fire, the baby sleeping against his chest. "What are you?" he whispered softly. "And why me?" The baby stirred, pressing closer, its warmth seeping into him. Daniel sighed. "Doesn't matter. Whatever you are, you're mine now." The alien girl, the giver, visited him often. She brought herbs, strange milk, and soft cloths. She never touched the child for long, but she always bowed her head respectfully. One evening she said, "This child it's not ordinary. Blood of ancients, blood of power. You feel it?" Daniel nodded reluctantly. "I've seen things. Lights." Floating, her silver eyes glistened. "Then you must protect more than a child. You protect a future." Those words stayed with him. Days passed, and the baby whom Daniel had begun calling Luma grew stronger. It reached for him whenever he stepped away, glowing faintly with every laugh. The bond was undeniable, yet danger grew with it. Korvac, the defeated warrior, had not vanished. He lingered in the shadows, watching with bitter eyes. Rumors spread he claimed the child was a weapon, too dangerous to be left with a weak outsider. Daniel felt the tension whenever Korvac passed by, his spear tapping the ground in challenge. The test came sooner than he thought. One evening, while Daniel fetched water from the stream just beyond the huts, a beast emerged from the forest. It was massive, with a body like a lion, but skin plated in dark scales, and tusks that curved like blades. Its roar shook the trees. Villagers screamed and scattered. Daniel froze, clutching Luma tight against his chest. The beast's eyes locked. "On them, run," someone shouted, but Daniel knew he could not. If he turned his back, the creature would strike them down. His body shook, but he stood firm, shielding the infant with his arms. The beast lowered its head and charged. Daniel braced for death. But before it reached them, Luma cried out one sharp wail, high and piercing. The air around them shimmered. Blue-white light burst from the child's small body, expanding in a sudden wave. The beast skidded to a halt, roaring in confusion. Its tusks scraped the ground, sparks flying, but it did not advance. Instead, it whimpered, lowered its head, and backed away slowly before turning and fleeing into the forest. The village fell, silent. Every eye turned to Daniel and the glowing child in his arms. The baby cooed, reaching for his face as if nothing had happened. Whispers spread like fire. Power. Chosen one. Protector. Korvac stepped forward, his face pale with shock, but twisted with rage. "This is no child, it is a weapon. It belongs to the warriors, not him." Daniel's arms tightened protectively around Luma. "She's not a weapon. She's just a baby." But even as he said it, he knew the truth was more complicated. The power that had just saved them was real, and it was growing. The elder raised his hand for silence. His voice was grave. "The child carries the spark of ancients. Long ago, such ones shaped our tribes, led us through darkness. Now one has returned, and it chose the human." The villagers bowed, some in reverence, others in fear. Korvac spat on the ground. "This is madness. If enemies learn of this, they will come. They will take the child. This outsider will not stop them." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Me." The elder's gaze fell heavy on him. "You are father, human. But know this, your duty is no longer only to feed and protect. You must guard against those who will come, for they will come." Oh, Daniel looked down at Luma. The child's golden eyes blinked up at him, filled with innocence and trust. He felt the weight of the entire village pressing down on his shoulders. That night, as the fires dimmed and the villagers whispered among themselves, Daniel sat outside the hut with Luma resting on his chest. The stars burned bright above, and the jungle hummed with hidden life. He stroked the child's back gently. "You saved us today," he whispered. But you're just a baby. Shouldn't have to fight. His voice cracked with the weight of it. So I'll fight for you. Whatever comes, I'll keep you safe. As if understanding, Luma gave a soft coo, glowing faintly against his shirt. Daniel closed his eyes, breathing deep. He no longer felt like a stranded survivor, felt like a father standing at the edge of a storm, holding the one thing worth living for. But in the darkness beyond the trees, torches flickered to many to belong to the village. Shadows moved, armored and armed. Korvax. Warning had already come true. Enemies were on their way, and this time, not even Luma's power might be enough. The jungle did not sleep that night. From beyond the trees, the glow of foreign torches flickered like fireflies of war. Shadows shifted between trunks, heavily armed figures, moving closer with each hour. Daniel stood outside the hut, Luma held against his chest. Watching the horizon, his hands shook, but not from fear. From responsibility. The alien elder approached him slowly. His silver-painted face looked more grave than ever. The raiders know, he said in a hushed voice. Word of the child's power spreads fast. They come to take her. If they succeed, they will raise her as a weapon against all. We will not survive. Daniel's jaw clenched. Then we fight. The elder shook his head. Our numbers are few. Our spears are weak. They bring fire and iron. The only hope is to hide the child or surrender her. The words burned in Daniel's ears. Surrender, he snapped. You'd give up your future. The elder's voice softened. The law binds you. But the law cannot protect you from armies. You have a choice, human. Take the child and flee. Save yourself, or stay and face death. Daniel looked down at Luma. The baby stirred, golden eyes blinking sleepily, then reached to tug his beard with a tiny hand. That simple touch broke him. He had never asked for this. He had fought against it every step. But here, in the silence before battle, he knew the truth. He wasn't holding a burden. He was holding his child. He turned back to the elder, his voice steady. No, I won't run. I didn't choose this at first, but now I do. This child is mine, and I'll fight for her, with or without your help. The elder studied him for a long moment, then bowed his head. Then you are truly father, by choice. The attack came at dawn. Dozens of raiders stormed the village, their armor black, their weapons gleaming with stolen technology. They shouted in harsh voices, torches burning, spears raised. The villagers fought bravely, but they were pushed back quickly. Daniel stood at the front, gripping a scavenged spear. Luma was safe behind him in the alien girl's arms, glowing faintly as if sensing the danger. The first raider charged. Daniel met him head-on, ducking under the swing of a blade and jamming his spear into the man's chest. The raider fell, and the crowd roared. But more came. Dust rose. Screams echoed. Fire spread through the huts. Daniel fought with desperation. Each strike not for glory, not for law, but for the tiny life depending on him. His arms burned, his chest heaved, but he refused to fall. Then a horn sounded. The raiders parted, and a massive figure stepped forward. Korvac. Daniel froze. You, Korvac's eyes gleamed with cruel triumph. Did you think I would kneel forever, human? I called them. I led them here. Ever meant. The child belongs to me, as it always should have. Daniel's blood ran cold. The betrayal struck deeper than any blade. But before he could answer, Luma cried out. The baby's glow exploded, brighter than ever before. A shockwave of blue-white light rippled outward, knocking raiders to their knees. Weapons flew from their hands. Even Korvac staggered, shielding his eyes. Daniel turned, shocked, as the alien girl carried the child to him. She calls for you, she shouted. He took Luma into his arms. The child's light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, merging, strengthening. Daniel felt a surge of energy unlike anything he had ever known, strength not of muscle, but of bond. He faced Korvac, holding the child close. She's not yours. She's not a weapon. She's my daughter. Korvac roared and lunged with his spear. Daniel braced, but before the strike landed, Luma's glow burst again. The light curved outward, forming a shimmering shield around them. Korvac's weapon shattered on impact, the force throwing him backward into the dust. The raiders, stunned by what they saw, began to flee into the jungle, their courage broken. The villagers surged forward, spears raised, driving them out. The battle was over as quickly as it had begun. Silence fell across the smoking village. Daniel stood in the center, chest heaving, Luma glowing softly in his arms. The child looked up at him, smiling faintly, as if proud. He laughed, tears stinging his eyes. "We did it, together." The elder approached once more, his voice trembling with awe. "The child's power is great, but without your will, it would have been lost. You are no longer just bearer by law. You are father by heart." The villagers bowed deeply to him, their fear replaced by respect. Even the alien girl knelt, though her eyes shone with warmth. "She is yours, forever." Daniel looked around, at them all, then down at Luma. He thought of the crash, of the girl who first gave him the egg, of every moment he had tried to escape. And he realized something. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living for her. He raised the child high, her glow lighting the village, and spoke with a voice clear and firm. "I am Daniel, I am human, and I am her father. Nothing will take her from me." The villagers cheered, the sound rolling like thunder. The drums began again, not in mourning or fear this time, but in celebration, as the sun rose over the burned huts and the healing ground. Daniel held Luma close, her heartbeat steady against his chest. He had not chosen this path, but now it was his, not forced by law, not bound by chance, by choice. And in that choice, he found strength greater than any weapon in the galaxy.